Alright, so folks, welcome back to this channel here. One thing that's been on my mind for a minute is the topic of FBA. And if you don't know, that stands for Foundational Black Americans. It seems like there's a lot of controversy that surrounds this term and just the topic overall. Now, I wanted to clear some things up because, in my opinion, and when I weigh the information, I start to see that things just don't add up. And I'm not talking about surrounding the concept or the title of FBA. I'm talking about the controversy and backlash that always bubbles up when it comes to immigrants within the U.S. and then those people who are living abroad. And really, I had to do my due diligence and binge listen to Tariq Nasheed, Ant CEO, and the other side of things, the other opposing consciousness of FBA. So when I listen to these things and I weigh the vantage points against one another, you start to see things that take shape and also exposes sentiments that are pretty hypocritical in regards to how they view FBA. And a lot of these people, I'm talking about the Pan-Africanists from the U.S. in Africa or from other areas. There was this Latina chick, she's like Latina, Cuban, and some other West Indian country. That was her mix, born in New York. I was going to add her, but it's pointless because that was already addressed, and her argument is more of the Pan-African side, but it's not positive Pan-Africanism. It's kind of the one that's parasitic. That's the parasitic version of Pan-Africanism, where it's just a one-sided relationship, and hypocrisy abounds with that parasitic version. I'm definitely going to address this, but one thing I want to do, I'm not going to use Tariq Nasheed or Ant CEO or anybody else here. I'm just going to, put the facts and evidence forth, and we have to use logic in here, and you have to see if it's right or wrong. So I'm going to use a guy, he's from the UK, but he's from post-Berlin Conference African lineage here. He's not pre-colonial African, of course not, but he's tied in with one of these 54 nation states that popped up after the Berlin Conference. And let's just see what he says. Let's look at his vantage point. And this goes along, this is building a point right here, and we're going to come full circle by the end of this video here. But let's check out this video here that I cut up and just remember what he says and apply it to when I start speaking on FBA, Foundational Black Americans, as an ethnic group.
Before we continue, I think we would all benefit from defining some key terms, because some of these terms have been beating people's asses for quite some time now. And the terms that I want to define are nationality, race, ethnicity. Because a lot of people don't know the difference between them. Nationality, the status of belonging to a particular nation by birth or naturalization. Race, any one of the groups that humans are often divided into based on physical traits regarded as common among people of shared ancestry. Shared ancestry. Physical traits. Common. Shared ancestry. Ethnicity, a large group of people with a shared culture, shared language, shared history, set of traditions, etc. So let's keep these definitions in our mind as we work our way through this episode, and I will use myself as an example for you, just so we can understand the complexity of all of these three terms. I see myself as a Black British Nigerian. I'm Black because I'm Black. I'm British because I was born here. I've lived here my entire life. I've grown up here. I'm a law-abiding, tax-paying member of society. I am British. And also, I got one of these. And I am also Nigerian at the same time because my parents, they're Nigerian migrants. They came to this country, meaning I have Nigerian heritage and Nigerian ancestry. And also, my full name is Orelua Olayemi Olumide Samuel Sherif Moro Ololuwayo Olukoga. I'm Nigerian.
So I'm not going to be a prick and not give the guy credit. The link to his video that you just saw will be in my description. So let's get into it, what he just spoke of. He spoke about nationality, race, and ethnicity. Now, concerning the Africans and Pan-Africans, if you're a West Indian, just sit on the sidelines and watch. Now, he spoke about nationality. Of course, that's self-explanatory. Us, FBA, and Africans come from different nations, man. That only changes when you start having the first, second, third, fourth generations there. And then the race or racial aspect of it, he's probably right, because, of course, belonging to a group based on physical traits common to people of shared ancestry. I don't think there's an FBA alive, or the percentage is very small, who say there are different races than Africans or melanated people altogether. And that's one thing we got to stop, man. Africa is part of the melanated majority, you know. That's one thing that Pan-Africans always skew. You know, if you're melanated, then you're African. I hate that, man. That's so stupid, and it kind of works backwards. You know, it really works backwards, because you're kind of giving up your original status. You know, those who are educated know what I'm talking about. Everybody, all the original people on the earth were melanated, okay? But ethnicity, that's when we really start getting into the meat and potatoes, the important stuff, because FBA and Africans, they're definitely different ethnicities, and that's a group of people with shared culture, language, history, and a set of traditions, and etc. So he spoke about and used himself as an example. You know, he's a melanated British guy of Nigerian ancestry, okay? And then he gave the name and everything. I mean, he's affiliated, his whole heritage is post-Berlin Conference Africa. You can't say that about FBAs. And I'm just gonna say it plainly. FBA, we're an amalgamation of 3 different melanated people groups. You know, and I'm gonna say it. I know y'all gonna be like, oh man, y'all just trying to take people's heritage and everything, but the facts are out there, man. If you want to listen, and you have to listen to us, man. That's one thing that Pan-Africans don't do, and Africans don't do, and there's some West Indians, they don't do it, despite the fact that they're in the same boat as us. That's why I say West Indians, just sit on the sidelines, because you guys are in the same boat as us. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a slave narrative or the extra information that's coming out that clears all this stuff up. West Indians, for the most part, they have the same amalgamation that we do, and that's 3 different melanated original peoples. And that's the ones that are in the Americas, the ones that's from Africa, pre-colonial Africa, and the original melanated peoples of Europe who were expelled from Europe to the Americas, okay? That's the surprise, and I know y'all gonna deny that, you know? But however you slice it, our ethnicity is different, and there's something called divergence time. And I didn't have a specific term, but it was when I did my homework that I came across ethnogenesis. You know, that's self-explanatory. Ethno, you know, I guess the beginning of your ethnicity, and divergence time leads to an ethnogenesis. And when it comes to FBA, we got 3 different people groups that amalgamated and became their own thing. That's why our names are different, our customs, our culture, our language, and everything is different. When you look at when the average FBA person looks into their family tree or does their genealogy, you will have that Native American. So we have that root right there. You would have that Atlantic slave population that came over, and that was minuscule to what is known presently as the United States, you know. So just add that in there. But then a lot of us, we got that melanated original Europeans that were expelled. You got a bunch of them in our family tree. So, you know, I know that's a lot of people gonna say that's pseudo. When I was doing my homework, I heard a lot of people from the West Indies to continental Africa to even FBA, other FBA folks. They were saying that the whole native claim is pseudo, but they think that we just came from the slave trade, even though the numbers don't add up. It doesn't add up, man. But let's go ahead and shift topics right quick. And this is something that is necessary, whatever part of the melanated diaspora, because hey, listen, that African diaspora, that's dead, man. We have to really certify who we are. We have to protect who we are. Other groups do that too. It's strange. You notice that? It's strange that other groups, they get to, like Nasheed said, they already have delineated, and we were the only ones that was pushing the whole, hey, you can have that if you want to, letting people eat off the plate, so to speak. But delineation, that's just outlining who you are, man. It's not really a separation. We're not cutting other melanated people off. We're just exerting who we are and certifying who we are. All that, hey, you don't have any culture, and all that culture that you have, that's just a broader American culture. Come on now, be for real. But let's get on the topic here. All right, so we have a whole historical record, and I would like to say that is from the 60s, and it's surrounding that time that the Hart-Sellers Act was enacted, and the Congressional Black Caucus were campaigning for more immigrants who aren't white, who are melanated, to come in. And the goal was, or the hope was, that okay, these melanated people from Africa, the Caribbean, South America, Central America, etc. can come in and be reinforcements, basically, to help us increase our numbers to fight. But little did we know the type of melanated person that would come over from these lands. They were coonish. I'm not gonna say coonish, but I'm gonna say they had the K1 gene, and I'll explain the K1 gene, or they were K1 all the way. I'll explain that later. But let's go back into this thing. Now, I was born in '86, so I probably was halfway into it. I was probably into the, okay, we're already in that phase of implementation. Things are already running smoothly. Now, I wasn't here for that first decade where you plan, because things don't happen instantly here. You have to plan for probably a decade, and then you start putting it in motion, and then that takes a decade within itself. So that's 20 years, man. And then you wouldn't know if it's positive or negative until that third phase, which is the third generation, or the third decade. So that's the 30-year mark. So everything that the Congressional Black Caucus did in campaigning for other melanated people to come over, those immigrants, you would not have seen the desired effect until 3 generations or 3 decades from, I guess, when you first planned it. So basically, this generation here, the reason why you're seeing FBA is because we're correcting a disastrous effect. We didn't have our desired effect letting these people come over here, because they weren't reinforcements. They were backstabbers. They're stabbing us in the back right now. They're drawing from us, and they're stabbing us in the back. So like I say, the most egregious thing that they could have done is get into high office and then start trying to erode what we're trying to do. And like I said, I'm not going to discuss everything on here, because like I say, you don't post war strategies. I mean, this is not Pete Hegseth. We're not of that mentality right here. We don't post things. All right, man. Let's just get into it, man. All right, so I'm gonna play this clip from an African immigrant who's pretty westernized. She got the Western accent, the American accent, but the mentality is still not the same. So let's see if there's no problem to what she's saying, or is what she's saying problematic. And the link to her video, I'll link to her TikTok page.
As an African living in the United States, I used to share the same sentiment that Africans share about African Americans, because I had a hard time when I first moved here. People used to always tell me, you're not black enough, you're an Oreo, you're secretly white on the inside, as if I wasn't literally from Africa. But I now understand, after living here for 8 years, that black in the United States is a very specific criteria, and anything outside of that just doesn't fit. but I want to help African Americans understand that Africans coming to the United States are immigrants, first and foremost. Then they are Nigerian or Senegalese or whatever country they're from. And then at some point, they are Black. But Africans don't put Black high up on their identity well as much as African Americans do. And that is for legitimate reasons on both ends. And so when an African is coming to the United States, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm an immigrant here. I have to do my best for myself and my family back home. The sacrifices that took for me to get here were no light work, okay? So I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's the dominant culture, which is white American culture. And so Africans are going to instinctively ally themselves with the culture that's going to give them the most success. I mean, African Americans even admit that they have to code switch to be successful here because that's what brings success. And so Africans are like, all right, we'll do that. And it also doesn't help that for a long time, Africans are fed a very negative view of Black American culture, and that's its own propaganda. But because Africans are so conservative and they're coming to a country where Black Americans have been labeled as the antithesis to this conservative traditional family values, they have, if anything, more in common with Southern Baptist white racist people. But that aside, going back to identity markers, Black Americans put Black first and foremost, and then everything else goes below it. And so they're thinking when another Black people come to our country, they're going to want to integrate with us, the other Black people, because Black comes first. And they get quickly disappointed in realizing that for Africans, Black and the identity and that coming is not first. Their immigrant identity comes first, and then their country. And if anything, for us as Africans to feel like that's my brother, that's my brethren, or whatever, you have to come from the same tribe as us, because we have so many Black people around, we don't automatically pre-select for Black. But Black Americans don't have so many Black people around, have had to defend and protect their culture amidst a dominant white culture, and so they already pre-select and are overprotective for Black. And so that's why I think at the core of it, there's a deep misunderstanding because of not realizing that we put where we put our identity markers and what we put first and what we prioritize are so different culturally because of our differences in trauma, realistically. And so it does make sense that Black Americans will be like, oh, my people, my brethrens, come here. And African Americans, or Africans, coming to the United States are like, I'm just trying to make it here. It's a lot of work to immigrate to the United States. And so y'all can stay over there, and I can see why it's hurtful, and I can see why it's taken personally, and I can see the deep misunderstanding and the betrayal that African Americans feel. But it's unfortunate, and that's just a reality. But if we can talk about it from this perspective, I think we can get to...
All right, so let's unpack what she said. I'm not going to take too much time on it, but from my vantage point, everything she said is problematic. Now, I do qualify as FBA to the core. Now, that designation and identifier, don't get it twisted. It's in reference to a people that has always been here. So that's the main point. But let's go back to what she said and how it's so problematic and from my vantage point. And I want to say most FBA freedmen, the ones who were classified over and over again, that's who we're talking about here. Now, okay, she said two things that's problematic. She said that when Africans come over, the immigrants, they identify as immigrants first. Now, that's very problematic because you're a continental African and you're in a pool with other immigrants, non-United States people. So you're gonna look out for Asians, Indians, white Europeans, Latinos, etc., who wasn't born here, who are coming over here and have to sign documents. You're gonna look out for them and resonate with them over melanated people, that class of people who have aunts or uncles, grandparents, or maybe even parents who rallied and wanted to bring other melanated immigrants over. She don't see the problem right there? Okay, so let's look at the other problematic bullet point. Okay, on top of being a person who identifies with the immigrant class, you say, okay, now it's the country of origin or your nationality second. Okay, so that's pretty problematic. That's another barrier that FBA have to go through just to, I guess, link up or break bread with you or have you see them in some type of brotherly or sisterly level. Okay, so you got immigrants, now you have your nationality. Now your tribe is more important, and that's a huge thing right there. I remember being on YouTube and I was looking at some information on this while I was doing my homework, and somebody from Nigeria, they were responding to a person that was FBA, and they was like, yo, we don't really need y'all, man, blah blah blah. And then the person from Nigeria was like, hey, I know some Igbo, some Hausa, and some Yoruba people that would never ever see you FBA as equals. So I'm just like, don't know, that's yo, so y'all getting mad at Tariq Nasheed and everybody else who's FBA and who's embracing that identifier and protection. You getting mad at them, but FBA people got to jump through 3 types of hoops, and there's 3 levels of separation that African immigrants, and even let's be honest, West Indians, you guys on the sidelines, you guys have that whole immigrant versus the Yankee outlook too. You know, some of you guys, you know, the tether, let's just be honest. And then your country of origin. But West Indians don't have that stupid tribal nonsense, man. That's a ironclad barrier that most people around the world have to break to even try to connect with continental Africans, the majority of them anyway. And then that 4th level, okay, so Africans, continental Africans, post-colonial African people, they have 3 levels or barriers above them before they start seeing eye to eye with FBA when it comes to this whole, you know, black or melanated people group designation within the U.S. That's why I say Pan-Africans, y'all got to get your mind right, man, because y'all messing up over here, man. How you gonna call FBA a cult? And that's not true. How you gonna say they're divisive? That's not true. When African immigrants, they say they look at themselves as immigrants first, they look at their nationality second, and then their tribal origin or designation third. So, like I say, man, y'all Pan-Africans, y'all gotta check yourselves when it comes to that. Africans, you gotta check yourselves when it comes to that, man. Because like I say, let's put this stuff in perspective. Let's use some logic right here. Okay, so the Congressional Black Caucus campaigned to get y'all over here. They campaigned, they lobbied, they did all this stuff right here just to try to get reinforcements. And then little did they know that they had people of this mentality right here. And when it comes to, let me speak to the West Indians right quick, man, because there's something that's kind of, I'm not going to go too hard on the West Indians because I think West Indians are brainwashed when they have that whole outlook, you know, that immigrant and then that nationalism that they come over with, man. Because I'm going to give you an example, man. You remember that 2012 Avengers movie, you know, when Hawkeye he's really a hero, but this dude at the beginning, he was doing some villainous stuff. He was brainwashed, man. And I think that Pan-Africanism, that type of mental, it brainwashes West Indians, because really, when you look at it, like I say, we're in the same boat, or West Indians, they're in the same boat as us FBA when it comes to having that threefold or 3-level amalgamation. The makeup of both of us, and it's to varying percentages, it's basically the native original people of the Americas, the people that came over pre-colonial Africa via slave trade, and then the big one is the melanated original Europeans who were expelled. That's one thing we don't talk about right there. Look at our last names, our surnames, man. And at the end of this video, or when I get finished with this whole African distorted mentality thing, I'm going to give some examples of what I'm talking about, because I know y'all hear that European thing and pseudo. Y'all hear that Aboriginal thing and pseudo. We're all African. I'm going to just, you know, look at our last names, man. You got people in the West Indies that got the same last name that I have, because we come from that same line, you know, when it comes to that European, that melanated European original line right there. But let's go back to this thing right here. to that video that the chick said. Now, of course, it's flagrant and it's a foul on the play when she said that African immigrants, they look at, okay, their immigration status, then their nationalistic origin, country of origin, then their tribal affiliation, before they finally see eye to eye with us when it comes to this whole, I guess, racial aspect, you know, black or melanated people group points right there, or viewpoints. She said something that was very egregious right there, and this is the Sambo, Tether, Coon, K1 mentality that forced FBA to really delineate right here. We have to protect ourselves against these people right here. You know, Pan-Africans, y'all foolish if y'all don't do this right here. And we're gonna let y'all just be pawns and, you know, waste away. Now, she said that when these African immigrants come over, and there's some West Indians that do this same thing too, she said that they tend to ally themselves with who they think are successful in this country. Okay? And then she said something that was very bad character, man. She said that when Africans come over, they see melanated FBA folks, and they're like, oh, this is what she's saying that FBA do. You know, yeah, we have done this for ever since the Hart Sellers Act and the Congressional Black Caucus campaign to bring them over. You know, we was like, hey, man, we trying to break bread with y'all, man. Yo, come over here. We, you know, peace up with one another. And she was like, these African immigrants be like, just look at us and be like, hey, I'm just trying to make it over here. You don't know where I did a lot just to get over here, man. So, yeah, you could just stay over there. Now, let's be honest right here. Let's infuse some logic in this discussion right here, man. If you're a weary traveler and you reach a destination, you on a road, and somebody try to be hospitable to you and invite you in, they have some bread or water or some refreshments or a hot meal, and you shower up and they got room and board for you, and you like, hey man, bro, it did a lot for me to get over here, man. You can just keep that over there. I want to talk to the rich people on this street. That's terrible character, man. That's terrible character. Who would want to even align themselves with people that act like that, who have that mentality? You trying to be hospitable towards somebody and link up and break bread and show them the ropes, let them know, hey, what the deal is within this country, and you're like, nah, you reject that. You reject all that hospitality, all the knowledge they trying to drop to you, you know, the ins and outs of how to move in this country, and you want to go with the enemy? Are you serious, man? You can't be for real, man. So, like I say, that plays a big part of delineation. And when I've been doing my research, I've heard a lot of African people say some egregious stuff towards us, man. You know, I guess they haven't looked in the mirror, but, you know, she said that they align with conservative white folks and stuff. And it's crazy because I've heard people from that African lineage there, whether they be first, second, or third generation, when they finally come over, they start saying some stupid stuff, man. You know, they still have that tribal mentality. They still look at themselves as whatever nationality their parents or grandparents, or I don't even think it's great grandparents yet, but they, you know, they still identify, and they still have that African immigrant mentality sometimes, man, even though they're second or third generation, you know. But they want to play both sides of the fence, man, and that's based off of selfishness right there. That's a mentality I just don't understand, because I don't possess that type of mentality right there. So what else did she say? Oh yeah, am I tripping? I know I'm not tripping, man. There got to be somebody else that feel the same way as I do. Let's check this video out here.
But you come into this country, you have a rude awakening, and you don't want to listen to the one people you should be listening to about how things work here.
I'm an immigrant here. I have to do my best for myself and my family back home. The sacrifices that took for me to get here were no light work, okay? So I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United
Let me run that one back just a little bit for dramatic effect.
were no light work, okay? So I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's
Didn't I say? Didn't I say earlier, y'all? Didn't I say earlier? This directly correlates to what I was saying, how their measurement in units of success are different. They are short-sighted and they're ignorant to the context of American society and history. The priority mindset for Black immigrants is not Black power. The priority mindset for Black immigrants is not the revolution. The priority mindset for Black immigrants is to come here and make a living. Black immigrants' priority mindset, their number one thing is to fulfill the lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Their main priority is to fulfill what they could not do in their own respective countries to the degree they are able to in America. Okay, let me get another one that kind of talks about, here we go. Their priority is to make a living. They're starting from square one, bottom of the pyramid. Physiological needs. What do you need to get that money? Obviously, right? Get a job, okay? You're talking about rubber meets the road, they flesh scraping the concrete, okay? They are trying to get it as they live. Physiological needs, food, water, warmth, rest. Safety needs, security, safety, shelter, in a kid-friendly neighborhood, right? Yes or no? And on top of that, they have watched Black Americans from afar. They have watched Black Americans from afar for years. Years. Whether in admiration or envy. Because they see the conditions of the average citizen of their countries and the opportunities afforded in those countries. And they see how that does not measure up to the experience of a Black American. When they see a Black American, they just see a Black person in America. They see someone that looks like them, walks like them, talks like them. No, actually, they see someone that looks like them. They see someone that looks like them, they're like, I could do that too. Or there is a base and a foundation where I can succeed in this country, because they're not oblivious. As much as they like to act, they're not oblivious. They know that a lot of other countries are anti-Black. So they see Black Americans, they see what Black Americans are accomplishing. They see how they are thriving. They see how they are able to succeed and do this and the third. They see themselves. They say, I can do this too. Why struggle over in my country? I can do this too. I can go there and do this too. Black people are there. I could go there too. So Black Americans create that foundation and that pipeline for Black immigrants, literally and figuratively, literally through the Immigration Act, civil rights movements, all of that, and figuratively as just the idea of how Black people exist within this country and the ability for Black people to exist in this country, right? In contrast to a lot of other countries that are anti-Black. Anyway, their definition of success, right, is to get and achieve what they had trouble getting and achieving in their own country. It's not sovereignty, like I said in the beginning. They already have a flag and an Independence Day. They have the optical illusion of independence, and that's good enough for most. So they come over here, okay, what are we fighting for? They already got their country and their flag and their Independence Day. What we're calling the revolution are two different things. So what we say, they live here a couple of years and then what? And then they what? Then they learn.
So I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's the dominant culture, which is white American culture.
Now, I like what she said. I like her, man. She has a good head on her shoulders, man. Now, I like what she said about Maslow's hierarchy of need, and she instantly peeped that, and she explained it in that video right there. And of course, I will link her video into my description right there. But one thing is that you can say about her, she's what they call a writer. She's an ally, man, because she's not FBA. She's a West Indian American. Now, the thing is about the West Indians, man, what they see us doing, they can do that on a greater scale because they have heritage connecting them to the island they're in. They have, of course, the slave trade ancestry, the pre-colonial Africa, not countries but kingdoms, you know, different people of different kingdoms, not these 54 countries that were concocted by white folks, European white people, but they can go directly to the UK and different European countries, because like I say, the West Indian people, they have that heritage and blood of the melanated originals in there coursing through their veins just like we do. But we're not going to Europe like that. We're looking at the, you know, FBA. They're looking straight to the government. So, you know, that's why I say, man, they're like Hawkeye. West Indians are like Hawkeye in that Avengers movie, man. Some of these guys, they're just brainwashed, so they coming at us, they attacking us, but it's like, yo, once they get their mind right, man, then we can actually do some heroic stuff together, man. You know, they can join that Avengers, you know. And then, like, let's see, man, Pan-Africans, right, today, they're problematic, man. Like, there's a movie called Blood and Bone, and Pan-Africans and some of these continental Africans who don't understand us in the Americas, you know, FBA in particular, you know, they act like Kimbo Slice's character when it comes to Michael Jai White's, his interaction with Michael Jai White's character. And let's give you the visual, man, because I'm definitely going to reference this over and over again when I, you know, make videos defending FBA and talking about Pan-African stuff. But, you know, check this clip out right here, and, you know, it give you the full idea of what I speak on.
Out of my road, nigga. See this motherfucker right here? This motherfucker think he's special. Want to be left alone and shit. Don't want to be mobbed up with the rest of us niggas. Like we ain't shit. You understand what I'm saying? Shit don't work like that around your own boy. Yeah, you going with the pack, you the pack bitch. You feel me? And they kind of tight too. That shit don't mean nothing around here though, player. I done seen a whole lot of built motherfuckers get their ass bent over from here every day. You understand what I'm telling you? I'm talking to you, partner.
You got to the count of 5.
This motherfucker talking to me.
1,
You hear this motherfucker?
2,
You hear this motherfucker?
3.
You just signed your own death certificate, player.
That's exactly how Pan-Africans act. All you have to do is study these guys. Look at their mentality. They always trying to, I don't know, it's always that, hey, you got to be blooded in with us. You know, why y'all niggas think y'all something special? FBA, why y'all think y'all don't want to be the mobbed up with the rest of us niggas? That's how they be acting, man. And they don't really listen. They come up with talking points, and when you look at it, man, when they drawing from these tribal Africans, you know, that's one thing that we don't have. We don't have that tribal outlook. We don't have that whole immigrant outlook, man. So they come over here and they just start acting stupid, man. Borderline retarded, coonish, man. So I posted a note here, and it's entitled Problems with Tethers. They're immigrant minded first. They identify with that first. Then their nationality comes second. Then their tribal affiliation comes third. All of that takes precedence before being a melanated person in the United States of America. And then that African chick in that TikTok video, she even admitted that when African immigrants come over here, they actively seek to align themselves with the group that will bring them the most success. And you heard her admit it's white people, spoken from the horse's mouth directly. And she even said that any attempts by FBA to form a bond or a union, she would reject proudly. You know, she said, hey, you can just stay over there. It was a lot coming over here. So she's gonna start looking towards the dominant society and white folks in general. So that's why I say you can't take Pan-Africans serious, because they absolve the actions of the immigrant class in the United States of America, specifically towards the local melanated population, which is FBA. And really, let's be honest right here. A tether that tether class is very akin to people who act as Trojan horses, because like I say, tethers, they come in and they want to infiltrate and move up the ranks and then just stop any progress. And really, they doing this speaking on our behalf. And that's why FBA, they're so passionate about this thing, because it's real to us. All of this is real to us. Like, people that's coming over, they don't have any connection to our struggle right there. So they come in and then they just really distort things. And then they start looking out for one another. And that's really parasitic. Let's be honest right there. That's parasitic to the core. So, yeah, watch out with tethers, man, because they're really human Trojan horses. Then they want to say, hey, we're divisive and all that. And they never check their own people, man. That's one thing. That's why I don't take Pan-African serious. And this channel is not a Pan-Africanist channel. You know, we got too much logic for that. Pan-Africanism, it probably had good intentions at its early stages, but when you let too many people in there, then you become part of that collective, man. And you see, you know, in that clip right there, Kimbo Slice with all his people, man, all hostile to people, man, because they didn't want to be blooded in quotations with them. So, you know, you saw at the end, man, Michael Jai White put them things on him, you know, and gave him that hot boot Sunday, put him to sleep. And that's the same thing FBA will do to Pan-Africanism if they... Listen, man, earlier I had made a statement. There's no African diaspora, man. We're all different people, man. My point of contention is Pan-Africans, you guys strip away the originality, the autonomy, the agency of everybody else, and you want to absorb it into a larger African collective. One thing that you guys don't realize is that you're doing a huge disservice, because you want to attribute all these melanated people around the globe to Africa, whereas you ignore divergence time leading to ethnogenesis. You ignore that fact right there. You ignore all the original melanated peoples that were found on every other continent, and then you attribute that to being African, and you give the people who came later to that continent, you give them the status of being the original people. Like when it comes to Asian people, those light-skinned Chinese people with straight hair, you tab them the definitive de facto Asians. And whatever melanated group that you find there, you always put, oh, these are Africans there, these Australians there. Pretty soon, like 100 years from now, you probably gonna say, oh, Australia's a white country, it's always been white. Whatever dark-skinned people are there, they're just Africans. You're gonna say that. Then the people in Australo-Melanesian, the Melanesians and stuff, you're gonna say, oh, those are Africans and all that. And then we already got examples of documentations. There's descriptions of melanated people in Europe, all over Europe, Germany in particular. But guess what Pan-Africans gonna say? They're gonna say, oh, this is the African presence in Europe. So like I say, you do a huge disservice, man. You're part of that confusion. And that's why we can't mess with Pan-Africans out here, man, because, you know, y'all want it all for Africa. Whereas with Africa, the whole melanated world, the collective of melanated people, Africa is a part of that, not the other way around, man. It probably started off like that, but like I say, divergence time and ethnogenesis, that's a real thing, man. So, you know, these people develop their own cultures, customs, etc., languages, you know. And Africa had their own thing going on too. So like I say, these people, they weren't in lockstep with Africa as Africa progressed and did their own thing throughout the years. These people developed their own, and you need to respect that. Pan-Africans do not respect that. So why should they be respected when they do that stuff? You know? And plus they had their own thing going. There's so many tribes and stuff in Africa, but they want to strip away agency from other melanated people. And FBA, like I say, we're made up of 3 different original melanated people groups. We're too strong for that. We can tap into Africa. We can tap into Europe. We can tap into the Americas, man. That's something that we went through an ethnogenesis with all these different types of melanated originals coming over here. So our mentality is straight different from you guys, man. And like I say, it's a protection. It's a protection. It's an identifier. You know, the terms may be new. The terms could even change, but it's in reference to a people who were already here before 1774. So stop being ignorant and get your knowledge up. And when we present you with knowledge, y'all always ignore that stuff. Like I say, that's the definition of ignorance, man. So like I say, I can't really mess with these Pan-Africans like that, man. There's no African diaspora. There's a melanated diaspora. We're going to get that out there. This video has gone on long enough, but I'm going to make a part 2, and I'm going to show the proof right there. I'm going to show sources highlighting our amalgamation, and just let you guys know, because y'all feign ignorance and you just don't know what's like that. So it's going to be directed towards the Pan-Africans. All right, this video is over, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.